A delegation of Hungarian officials will continue talks with the IMF today. Hungary is in Washington to negotiate a backstop to its debt-ridden economy. In recent weeks, the Hungarian forint reached an all-time low against the euro, and all three big ratings agencies downgraded the country's debt to junk status. The IMF want to see the country repeal new laws that have curtailed the independence of the Hungarian central bank. Becky.
Yeah, looking at some of that data that Jeff just mentioned there as these talks with the IMF go on, and we look ahead to what the conclusion of those is likely to be. The currency has been suffering, and that's certainly apparent when we look at this 3-month chart. Over that period, we've seen the dollar strengthening by 13% against the Hungarian forint. The dollar continuing that move up by 0.4% is the most recent data. So that's a picture as the currency has been suffering during that period. But we've also been looking at the bond markets too, to see the impact on the bond markets. Hungarian debt, for its part, downgraded to junk. We know that, for a start, the 10-year Hungarian debt yield is at 9.88 right now. But also there's been concern about Austria in all of this as well. Austrian banks are heavily involved in lending to Hungarian borrowers. And we have seen elevated yields for Austrian debt recently, currently standing at about 3.35. And in fact, yesterday, the most recent Austrian government debt auction got away very smoothly. So the Austrians saying that, they are managing to go ahead business as usual when it comes to funding their own country. But concerned about the contagion effect, nonetheless, of these Hungarian issues. Well, Caroline Schober has travelled out to Budapest. She joins us now to update us on some of the latest developments. Caroline.
Hey, good morning to you, Becky. Actually, we did see the Hungarian forint rallying just in the last couple of days. And Becky, that is a direct result of the government backtracking on some of its policies, the highly controversial policies. Most importantly, it says we're open to discussing the Central Bank Act, some of these very controversial policies which have put limits on the freedom of press, of religion, and have also put limits on the judiciary system. I'm now joined by Thomas Boros. He's a director at Policy Solutions to talk about some of the issues on the political front. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us this bright and early. So this complete U-turn in communication by the government, what does it actually mean? Is it just a bluff to get IMF help, or will we actually see a reversal in economic policy as well?
We don't know yet whether it will be a U-turn only in communication and also in economic policy. What we see now that the minister who is the most pro-European, the Minister for Foreign Affairs, became hyperactive in foreign countries, and also the minister who is responsible for IMF negotiations declared that we, as the government, are ready to all compromise to conclude an agreement with the IMF. This is a big U-turn in communication, but we don't see any concrete measures for this U-turn.
Thomas, in Western media, Mr. Orban and his Fidesz party, they're described as this authoritarian leadership with anti-democracy, an agenda. They have this agenda, this ideology of economic nationalism. Is the Western media right in portraying him that way?
The situation is not black and white. What we see that the image of the government and the country is much worse than the current situation, but the current situation is very bad also. So what we see is really the weakening of the democratic checks and balances in Hungary, and we see an unpredictable economic policy. So the question is whether Orbán Viktor, the Prime Minister, would follow this populist communication, populist measures, or he will continue a Western type of economic policy.
But you know what? What really strikes me, though, is the fact that Mr. Orban and his government, they actually still have a majority. They're still relatively popular. Yes, I know they've lost some voter support, but why is that? Is there simply no alternative in Hungary?
According to the opinion polls, he lost more than 1 million voters, so they are around 20% of the total population. But altogether, he is the most popular, one of the most popular politicians, and Fidesz is the most popular party. The current situation, there is no one strong opposition party. The opposition parties are fragmented. So that's why if you come to Hungary and see the demonstrations, they are all organized by NGOs. And usually politicians are not allowed to give a speech there. What Viktor Orbán can see is that if the economy will not boost this year, and according to the predictions, it will not boost, but there will be a recession. It will be the real threat for Viktor Orbán, not the international media or not the international organizations.
So the majority of people, they do believe that Hungary will eventually clinch this EU-IMF deal. But what if Hungary doesn't reverse some of its very controversial policies? What if it doesn't get the IMF deal? Is there a chance that Hungary can actually get sanctions from the EU? Is there a chance that it can be ejected from the EU?
I don't think there will be a very big sanctions. So one sanction can be according to the 7th article of the Treaty of the European Union, when the rights of a membership can be suspended. But it has never ever been used before, and I don't think it would used neither now. But what the EU can do is an infringement procedure, or the next financial framework. The EU can say that we're going to get so much money than we want to.
All right, Tamás, thank you so much for sharing your insight. That was Tamás Boros from Policy Economics. Thank you so much, Jeff. Back over to you.